Yo, it's Trivelli. I'm back, and today we're about to break down the Miami Hurricanes taking on their arch rival FSU, coming to town 7 p.m. Saturday night. You know I brought the best Canes talking heads in the world. We got Nick Green and Mike Torado to give the in-depth analysis that you guys crave. So if you can, give us a like and a subscribe, because you know that we're never slacking. So let's jump into the action.
I'm living life like this. Maybe give a little glimpse, maybe.
So today, boys, obviously on the show, we're about to break down this amazing matchup between, who we hate more than anyone in the world, FSU. They're coming to town. We got to be ready for it. But before we do, I do want to touch on that amazing game that we just played versus Louisville. Real nail-biter, kind of like the last 3 weeks that we've had to start our ACC campaign. So if you guys want to, touch on some of the notes from Louisville real quick, just to sum up, give a recap of that game, and then we can move forward into this amazing matchup that we have this Saturday night.
Yeah, I thought that, Cam Ward came out and played like he normally does. Offensive line played incredible. He had a lot of time. He only had a few sacks. And, the game was decided on that 14-point swing, in my opinion. We could have really pulled away there and, a quick touchdown on a kickoff and then a fumble. And that game turned around so fast on us. And we were back in a dogfight for the third week in a row. But like I've said many times, I have a sense of calmness when Cam Ward has the ball in his hands that I haven't had in a lot of years as a Miami Hurricane fan. Every other quarterback, I'm always like, oh, God, are we going to even score? But not with Cam. I feel confident that he could drive us down the field almost against anybody. And it's really nice to feel that way. So that was kind of my take from the game.
Yeah, some things I wanted to touch up on is I really like the offensive line play. One thing I did notice we did, I don't know if Matthew McCoy got hurt or something, but we did slide Jalen Rivers down to that left guard and brought Markell back out. And when we did that, I really saw the step up in our offensive line play. I mean, there was times where we're running the ball, and the first time Mark Fletcher or Damian Martinez is getting touched, it's like 5 or 6 yards past the line of scrimmage. And that's all due to the offensive line opening up big holes and actually physically moving these guys downfield. I mean, I know everyone saw that one run when I believe it was Damian Martinez. He hit the safety. That's 12 yards down the field before the safety is even there. And our offensive linemen are right behind him. These were great. It was finally good to see our offensive line really gel and, really dominate, because we haven't been doing that the past 3 weeks. Cam Morris has been under pressure, and I feel like some of the running game hasn't been as good as it was last week.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I mean, one thing I want to touch on real quick, I thought that Cam Ward was once again miraculous. The ability to make some of those throws, like the one he made in the first quarter to Jacoby George in the back of the end zone, that 40-yard frozen rope really reminded me of that throw that he made versus the Gators in when he kind of same play to Jacoby in the back of the end zone. It really made me feel like we have one of the best wide receiver cores in the nation, again, from Sam Brown kind of turning up and being really effective, taking the top off the defense. So, from all around perspective, that game we obviously scored a ton of points like we always do, but another dogfight. The defense really does need to step up, and we'll break that down in the FSU game as well. But just to touch on, we have X, we've got Isaiah Horton, we've got Jacoby George, and we have Sam Brown. Name me a team in the country that can, defend all that speed and all that talent. I haven't seen one yet, but FSU could be one of those teams that, really could. We'll break that down in a second. One more thing about the Louisville game, guys, that our rushing attack was unstoppable. With over 220 yards combined in that game, Mark Fletcher and Damian Martinez really stepped up, like you guys said. I think they might have heard the podcast, because they gave an even split to Damian as well as Mark Fletcher, with 12 carries for Damian and 13 for Fletcher. So very effective in terms of splitting up their reps. And we finally cleaned up the penalties to some extent with only 5 penalties. That's a big change, from what we've been used to previously in the season. Defense is still a huge problem. We cannot be giving up as many points as we have, but we'll touch on that in a second. And yeah, that's all I got for the Louisville game, guys. If you want to start breaking down now, how big of a matchup this is, some of your key points for the FSU game. Obviously, I know you guys are extremely excited for this. So, Nick, give me something that you got for this FSU game coming up.
Yeah, one thing that everyone seems... I know FSU is 1-6. Yes, they're not a great football club. But one thing they are doing well is defensively. They're only allowing 25 points a game. their secondary is elite, and I believe that is actually going to be probably the hardest secondary Cam Ward's going to have to face all season, unless we go to the ACC championship. I'm not saying we are, but I'm saying if we do go there, and if it happens to be a team like Clemson, they're going to be better than Florida State, but this is going to be a very, very, very close game. I know Vegas came out with a 21.5-point spread. I think that is ridiculous because it is still a rivalry game. And guess what, guys? They can come in and ruin our playoff dreams. That alone is going to make these guys play even harder. Knowing that you could stop your rivals on a homecoming night and ruin their playoff potential, I don't like it. Not a fan.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, look, to say that they're not struggling is an understatement. They rank dead last in a lot of categories, offensively mostly. They arguably have the worst offensive line in college football. I'm talking like they're like 129th in rushing, 130th in yards per rush. It's pretty bad. But like what Nick said, the secondary is what scares me because it's a matchup thing. When you look at it on a matchup perspective, we have a really good offense, but they have a really good defense. Our defense has been struggling, so has their offense. So they match up really well with us. And that's what scares me the most. Not only is it the matchup, but it's the bad blood. It's the rivalry. It's the mentality. And again, they have nothing to lose right now. And most people will laugh at me for saying this, but Florida State is still bowl eligible. They are 1-6. If they you beat a 6 Miami, that changes the narrative of your whole season, and it raises belief. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that just raises your belief, and that puts you right into the category of, wow, we can run the table and make a bowl game and salvage this season and actually get a positive out of this. It will help recruiting to know that this team can bounce back and switch things and move in the right direction, beat a ranked team at 6 Miami, and move forward in their season.
Absolutely. I think for them, the belief is everything, like you guys talked about, because statistically speaking, they haven't done anything or put anything on tape that would show that they could keep up in this game. But, rivalries play such a big factor in college football. It's one of the biggest factors in watching this sport. We talk about it's a 21-point spread right now, gentlemen, and I think that's indicative of how these team seasons have gone so far. One team is on fire. One team is a dumpster fire. So much different, but, when you want to look at it, it kind of reminds me of last year when we were a dumpster fire and we had to put Emory in for that FSU game to change things up with how Tyler Van Dyke was failing. And now, FSU's in that similar position, but switch the roles around and 1 year forward. Now we're looking at Miami looking to run the table. Only difference is we won't be left out of the playoffs this year. Sorry, boys. Now, FSU, they are going to start Brock Glenn in this game. They're going to maybe give some reps to their third-string quarterback, Luke. So one thing I want to touch on is that maybe, we don't have the most film on them, maybe a game or two, not that much film that we could, throw into the tank for Guidry, but they scored 13 points versus Clemson. They've only put 500 yards on the season in rushing. That is atrocious. We have 1,300 yards rushing on the season, boys. That's 2.5 times the amount that they have. We really need to beat pardon my French, beat the shit out of this team this week, really pound them, because I just do not see them keeping up. And one thing they're going to try to do is maybe try to limit our time of possession, keep the ball out of Cam Ward's hands. But, touch on some things that you guys think that they do well, something that maybe would scare you in this game or a way that they can keep the game close. Nick, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think one thing they're going to do to keep this game close is, like I said, their secondary. They're going to limit Cam Ward. So if we can't get the run game going early and often, get those safeties creeping them, have them, maybe put 7, 8 in the box, then it's going to worry me. I like Micah said, like this team, they're not out of bowl eligibility yet. You come in and you beat your rival and you kill their playoff dreams, dude, that changes an entire program. That could change your program for years to come, a win like this. So, and the problem is these guys have nothing to lose. There's not one thing to lose. They're 1-6. What do they have to lose? Not a single thing. Their dreams are most likely crushed after 2 weeks of football. So you know what? Why don't we just go crush our rivals' dreams on their homecoming night? The feel in the air for me is not well, and when you guys see my prediction later, you'll see where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the rush game is going to be the entire thing about this game. You know, Florida State gives up 172 rush yards a game on the season, which ranks 91 out of 134. So they're pretty much fighting for dead last in that category as well. And that's what it's going to be, because their secondary is very, very good. Best part of their game, honestly, and I hate to say it, I wish we had their secondary. Our secondary has really been struggling. That's probably the worst part of our team. It's kind of funny how, you know, we've flipped the roles like you were alluding to earlier. But the last thing that I want to touch on, and I have a really strong belief about this, and I was looking into a lot of different types of articles and things about football players talking about, you know, how much of a percentage do people believe that football is mentally? What's the mental game? And a lot of articles were alluding to more than 50%. I think it's even more. I think it's like 70 or 75% mental.
Yep.
And I truly, truly believe if you've never put on pads, if you've never strapped a helmet on, and you've never played this game at the high school or collegiate level, that you truly can't understand rivalry football. You can't understand momentum. You can't understand the internals of what's happening inside the football field. And this is why some people go, oh, Miami's going to kill them. But you're not understanding that all these people know each other. This is a mental game. You hate them. They hate you. Records are out the window. You got to line up and play football. But if you've never done that, you can't understand it. And I know that people have fought me on this subject because there's gurus on ESPN and all this stuff that have never played football, but they don't understand the mental side of it. You can only understand what you've done. You can't teach what you've never done. You can't understand it. And that's what I'm saying. You give this team a win, they very well can run the table because it's all about belief. Football is belief. What did we used to say on Monarch, Nick? If you don't believe, you don't belong. That's 100%. That was our catchphrase because it's all belief. As soon as you give Florida State a couple plays, as soon as you let them go up 7-0 or let them take the lead on you,
it changes everything.
It changes the narrative of everything.
And you, like you said, you throw in the fact that these guys have played against each other for probably years in high school and AAU ball. So I mean, that changes everything. Yeah.
It's a matchup thing. Again, it goes back to the matchups. They match up well with us. They're all South Florida kids. A lot of them.
I think their saving grace, what scares me, is their defense. Of course, they haven't seen a team like us yet on their schedule putting up, 500 plus yards of offense per game, but they're only allowing 22 points a game. And like you guys said, with a secondary like that, they've been elite defensively. Their offense has not had their back. They've put them in precarious situation after bad situation, and their defense has clawed them out of those several times. You look at that Cal win, it's one of the ugliest games I've ever seen in my life. They held a team to 9 points and they still win the game with 14. So they really do scare me, coming in with 17 sacks through 7 games. That's a big takeaway for FSU. If they're standing up Cam and Ward and they're getting pressure on him, like you said, they could limit him and make him make some mistakes. That's why I think it's imperative for us to have another strong game running the football. I don't think they can keep up with us in a track meet. So if we can score, north of 35 points, I think it could be a comfortable win. But let me go to you guys here for your score predictions. Nick, what do you think this final score is going to be for this game?
I think it's going to be really close, guys. I know Vegas is saying 21.5. I'm going to go final score 24-21 Miami, and I believe it could be a Andy Borregales walk-off field goal to win the game. I really think it's going to be close, guys. I think Vegas is dead wrong with this. It's the rivalry game that can crush your rival's dreams of going to the playoffs for the first time in program history. So, I think that's going to be a huge factor. And, like the two invisible things that don't exist but are the biggest parts in football, belief and momentum. They're not real. It's not like a real thing. Like, here's momentum, here's belief. It's invisible, but it exists in the game, and it's actually probably the most important parts of the game. As Mike was saying earlier, he says 50% of it's mental. I'm probably around 75, 80%. You know, playing the game, it changes you, man. It changes you. Knowing it's a rivalry game, knowing the stakes you have on the line, it makes the game different. 24-21 Miami, Andy Bargalis walk-off field goal.
Let's go. I'll take it. Mike?
I'm a little bit more dangerous than him. I do think it's going to be close. I believe it's a one-possession game going into the fourth quarter. I believe we are in favor of that possession. I would put it at about 24-17. I just think, based on my research and what I've looked at, and yes, we've talked, it's a rivalry game, their offense is one of the worst I've actually ever witnessed. I mean, I just don't think that they can sustain 4 quarters. When guys get tired, when fatigue starts setting in, I think the trenches for us is what wins us this football game on both sides, but more on the offensive side. So I think Miami pulls away in the fourth quarter. I think it's a 7-point game going in, 24-17. Miami scores a couple late touchdowns, make it 38-17, and Miami gets that victory at 38-17, but it won't tell the whole story. It will be a closer game in the first 3 quarters. I just feel that we are just a little too powerful this year, especially on offense. And it's just going to be so hard for them to keep up. You know, eventually something's going to break. Something, whether it's a run or a pass, something's going to give later in the game just because of that fatigue factor. And that'd be my prediction for the game.
Yeah, that's been our biggest thing all year. Second half football has been phenomenal, and the war of attrition that we put on, teams over 4 quarters, they just can't hang with us. The rivalry will play a factor. They'll be able to keep it close going into halftime, I think for sure. The third quarter and fourth quarter we'll see because of how good Miami has been. I'm kind of in between you guys. I have Miami putting up 31 in this game. They're only giving up 22 a game right now, so scoring 9 points over their average will take it. I think this might be the game that maybe Cam Ward struggles a little bit. It's a rivalry game. A lot of lights, camera, and action is on, although he's been calm so far. I'm giving us 31. I'm giving, FSU 20 with 2 quarterbacks that could be possibly playing an offense that's been anemic and a rushing game that's been non-existent. It's tough to give them more than that, but I'll give them 20 points. I say we win this game 31-20, but it's not comfortable. But none of our wins have been comfortable, and they all count for the same. It all, we're 3-0 in the conference right now. We're gearing up for an ACC championship run. Fingers crossed. So, boys, thank you guys so much for coming on and giving your, breakdown, your predictions. As always, we'll be back next week with another, bombshell breakdown after this game, win or lose. And, obviously we should crush them. So, hey, good luck, Canes. And we're going to end this off how we always do, boys. Let's go, Canes.
Go Canes.
I'm living life like this. Maybe give a little glimpse, maybe give a little